You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
So we're out and about here at the Monday Night Community Show, and we're going to be talking to Laura and Louise and Rob as well, with a bit of an update on the Leysdown lighting project. But firstly, as always, it's good to speak to you.
And you, thank you. Hi.
So the most recent development is you had the final official launch of the lights. How did it go?
Yes, it went really well, Daniel. It was a bit of a chilly evening, but we had previously worked with the children at the St Clement's site and East Church site to make lanterns with Big Fish Arts, and so they paraded from the school in Leysdown down to the seafront. They braved the weather, and then once they got to the plaza, there was some homemade stew waiting for them to eat to warm them up. So it was a good evening.
So what else happened on the launch?
So as Louise said, I was actually in the parade with the children with our lanterns, which was fantastic, and we walked down to the parade, down to the front, and we were welcomed there by the mayor. And at 7 o'clock the mayor switched the lights on for us. We had a bit of music from Big Fish, and it was a lovely evening. We had over 100 people there, fantastic night, and it was lovely to see the lights on, and they were sort of doing their sort of light pattern as well, so it was lovely.
So were the lanterns that the children made influenced by the actual lighting installation?
Well, I think they were working with Big Fish, so I think the idea was that we wanted some kind of light parade to take the children down to the front. So I think the actual shape of the lanterns I don't think was in the shape of the actual lights, but it was just this idea that they were part of it and that they could take their own lights down there and see the new lights being switched on.
So we're now joined with Rob. Rob, it's good to catch up with you again.
Yeah, hello Daniel again.
So I bet it's nice now that you've had the final launch and they're up and working.
Yes, it's been quite a long project really, but it's been very rewarding. And yes, there they go, there they are, working, and for everybody to see. And the title was Light Up Leysdown, and it's quite interesting. Somebody came up to me and said, well, now it's nice and bright here on the prom because the lights are so bright they actually illuminate the whole of that stretch along the front there in a nice coloured modulating light.
So it's changing the space as you'd hoped from the beginning?
Oh yes, I think it's actually, I'm more impressed than I thought I'd be, which is good, yes. I mean, the effects around the area has certainly made that whole area much more friendly.
Now, I've interviewed you a couple of times during this project, but I was just wondering if you could explain to listeners what the process has been from the day you were chosen as the artist right up until today.
Well, it's been quite a long project, so I suppose you could say initially I worked with the schools to come up with some little ideas and get to know some of the people really, and just to find out what sort of place Leysdown is. And then we had the schools, and I presented some of their work to the I think it was to the carnival, where we talk to some of the local residents and some of the visitors and see what they thought about putting some lights up. And so with all this feedback came up some ideas, and these involved, colour changes and a little bit traditional but I wanted to make it a bit more contemporary. And came up with the idea, and we did a pilot run at Christmas, and then we've got everything all organised, and now it's up and running for now. And they'll be permanently in, so that should be good. I do know that they were always saying how dark and gloomy it was in the winter, so this will make a bit of a difference.
So the actual lights, although it's a job because our listeners can't see them, but I was just wondering if you could sort of explain roughly what they would see, the shape of them, and perhaps what influenced the shape and the colours that are used.
Well, I suppose what influenced the colours and the shapes and design was primarily a traditional lighting scheme that you get along any seafront anywhere, which is known as catenary cables, where you have those strings of light bulbs. But instead of having light bulbs, I've got these long coloured tubes that in the daytime look like kind of brightly coloured objects, like you'd see hanging around in it looked like possibly sticks of rock or bananas or something kind of slightly humorous. Each one's got its own colour. During the daytime, so they're interesting to see. And in the evening, they've got colour change. They turn on the lights it lights up from inside these tubes, and those tubes, and then you can have any range or colour that you like. So, for example, at the moment we've got the pattern which is on right now is a rainbow, and it starts off with red, and the red moves all the way across, and then you get the blue, and then you get the green, and it just fades from right to left. I've got other programs as well, got other designs which we can have, which are much more traditional. So it's what's known as chasing, which is what's very popular on seaside resorts, where you have a light that flashes very quickly from the left to the right. And then you've got other things as well, more random ones, and ones which can go fast and ones which can go slow. But the key thing about this particular selection of lights is it was made for Leysdown. It's quite innovative, and because of the weather conditions down there, I had to keep what was, as it were, what could get blown around by the wind to a minimum. Yeah. So everything I can cut out, I have. So what you have is lights and a power cable, and that's all. But the colour is changed by a radio controller. So you can control all this stuff from the ground, from a computer, which is quite interesting and quite new.
So they could be changed for different events then, or different times of the year? Possibly.
Absolutely. You can have, there's limitless numbers of patterns and things you can do with it. And over the years, I'm hoping you can build up a stock of different patterns and designs.
Well, that's one of the things I think that you want to cover, and is good to get over, that people often think of lighting displays as temporary, so perhaps they're up for Christmas, or we're around Easter time, but these lights are a permanent display.
Oh yes, in fact I think it's more important that they're up during the winter months, because that's actually when Leysdown's a bit quiet, and that's the end where nobody goes. Whereas in summer there's the evenings are much longer, or much shorter, depending on how you look at it. But there's more light around. So in fact, it would be to its benefit to have them on in the darker months of the year. And that's right, they're on all the time from now on.
So we're back talking to Laura and Louise after talking to Rob. Is this kind of the last project you're going to be doing for Leysdown Rose Tinted for now?
Yes, we're coming to the end of our work in Leysdown. The vision, Leysdown Rose Tinted, still exists, but it does require funding and bring that money in to do some of those projects. But maybe some of them will happen through the big local. You don't know. I mean, they're asking for feedback on what people would like to see in the village. But we have been pretty busy. We've been in Leysdown for 3 years now. So there's various projects that we've undertaken, and it's nice to finish with the Illuminations project.
Well, I was going to ask that, if you could just refresh our listeners the different projects that have been covered over the years.
Okay, so we've had 12 commissions actually that we've curated in Leysdown. The first one was a website which was Voices of Leysdown, and that was working with Rosa Ainley. And that's still going. That's www.voicesofleysdown.co.uk. Then we worked on the Spinny Rose Garden, and that was working with an artist called Alan Heslop. And we had various watercolour workshops. We went and visited Alan in his studio, and he's made 10 sculptural pieces that are part of the garden. And the garden has roses, varieties, shrubs, hedges, and it will bloom all through the year. So there'll be different varieties of roses, and also different planting throughout the year. And then we went on to can-do signage. So there are 6 individual signs around the village, and there's 1 new village sign. And then there's also 2 resting points which are part of the cycle route. And we worked with those with Laura Boswell, the artist doing the village sign, Mark Hewitt, who was a writer in resident, and we had Alan Heslop making the resting points. And now we've come on to the Illuminations Light Flight, and we've been working with Rob Olins on the lighting scheme down the front. So we've been very busy for the past 3 years, had some lovely projects, worked with some lovely artists, and worked really with some lovely people from the community, residents and visitors. And as Louise says, there are still parts of that project to continue, but our time has come to an end, and we've thoroughly enjoyed it, really enjoyed it.
I'd like to thank you both of you for working with me and allowing me to catch up with you and cover some of the projects you've worked on.
Oh, we've loved it, Daniel. We've loved the fact that you've been on the journey with us, actually. It's lovely that you've recorded them, and we've got all those recordings now, which give us an archive of this project, so it's been fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I've no doubt we'll hear from you in the future with creative people and places.
You will.